Okay, we are live and good to go.
Good morning. Welcome to the Berrien County Finance Meeting. I would ask Stephanie Carlson if she would call the roll, please.
Commissioner Yarborough,
Present via Zoom from the city of Benton Harbor.
Commissioner Hinkleman, Commissioner Scott,
Present via Zoom, New Buffalo Township.
Commissioner Freeling.
Present via Zoom, Baroda Township.
Thank you. Annette, would you help us with the agenda, please?
Sure, absolutely. Financial analyst Jake Whitaker is in the room and he's going to talk to you about requests for waivers.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Jake Whitaker. Would you go ahead, please?
I will. Good morning. The first is going to be a vendor request for Presidio. This is coming from IS and is for the Juvenile Center security camera upgrade. And I see Chris is on the call.
Morning. Hear me okay?
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, commissioners. Actually, I have two waivers submitted. They're both for Presidio, and this is for very similar discussion, really, that we need to have. And this is something that we went out, we got multiple quotes for, but we're running into an issue because we have what's called an assigned vendor, a preferred vendor, or a VAR, a value-added reseller. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that this morning. And what happens when you buy a product like Cisco or technology? It works a lot in the technology world, or from Microsoft or Vigilon or any of these companies, that you get assigned what's called a value-added reseller. And that company is registered with the manufacturer as the reseller of that product. And so whenever they register a quote or a deal with us, that VAR gets the best pricing for that particular product. If any other vendor comes and tries to quote that same project, then they don't get the pricing. And I have two examples of that for this camera system, and the other is the switch project, which we're going to be talking about, where we went out, we got a quote from our VAR, which is Presidio, we got pricing, and then we went to two other vendors and got competitive quotes, and their pricing was significantly higher. So with the camera project, and I could show you the three quotes if you want to see them. The camera project, Presidio, came in at just over $50,000. The closest quote was $10,000 higher. The second competitive quote I got was almost $19,000 higher. So in a lot of cases, we're getting bumped back when we try to get these multiple quotes from the vendors. Like, you already have a VAR. Why are you coming to talk to us? Because they're going to get the best pricing from us. Mm-hmm. So it's just a situation where we have relationships with a lot of these vendors, and this is kind of testing it in some ways, because, you know, as a favor, we'll get you the quote, but understand our pricing is going to be nowhere near what you're going to be able to get through your value-added reseller. So for the camera project, like I said, this project it's an upgrade to our existing camera system, which is in the Juvenile Center. The version that they're running on is outdated. The cameras are, many of the cameras you no longer can get replacements for. So this will bring them up in line with the same version of the Vigilon system, replace the outdated cameras and bring them up in line with the rest of the county. We use the Vigilon throughout the county. We have hundreds of cameras, and this will make us uniform across the board. Kip, am I missing anything in that conversation?
No, I don't think so, other than just, you know, to highlight that the secondary, third, you know, the additional vendors that we're going to and asking for pricing, they can see that deal has already been registered with the other VAR, and so you know, they know they're not going to win the deal, and to a certain degree, you know, I think when we're asking for that stuff, we're realizing, and they're realizing, we're kind of wasting their time to do that. So it strains that relationship that we have with those other resellers that we use for other projects.
Yeah, it's just, I've had over 20, close to 25 years tech experience, and I don't know if the VAR concept filters over into the non-tech world, but it's just something that's out there. It's part of the relationship that the manufacturers like a Microsoft, like a Cisco, like Citrix, and they have with their vendors, and it basically ensures that their vendors get customers, and it's part of that dealing between the vendors and the manufacturer. So once you're kind of in line with them, really you're not going to get pricing that's improved anywhere else. Where it makes the most sense is if you're changing products. Say if we're going to go away from a Vigilon, we're going to go away from Cisco, which, then that's the point where you want to, go out and seek bids and put that out there to see where you're going to get pricing on different competing products. Does that make sense?
Yes. I'm real pleased that you did do a bit of shopping. It's good to see every now and then, what's going on there. I'd like to ask Commissioners Committee, do you have any questions, discussion?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Scott. I agree with everything that Chris has said. The only thing that I have to say, and I think this Finance Committee needs to discuss this aspect of it, is when we do these waivers, our wording clearly states that if it goes over $19,999 or whatever, that we will get competitive bids. It doesn't say anything in there about having a bid opening, but it does say competitive bids. My thought in this whole process is, for transparency reasons, when things like this happen on these waivers, the department head should staple or attach the competitive bids that they got that correspond with this waiver, so that at any given time, the public would be able to, if they FOIA'd something, there would be a record there. It wouldn't look as though, for transparency reasons, that we didn't and was circumventing the system, even though we're not. I'm just looking at it from that aspect. I agree with everything that Chris said. I'm in support of it.
And I would like to ask you, Commissioner Scott, if you will report on these waivers. Are there other, yes, please, Commissioner Freeling.
Not necessarily about this particular waiver request, but I think that there needs to be a conversation with staff, like what Chris was saying and Kip was saying. It's putting a strain on the relationships that we've already sort of helped to nurture and create through our networking. What we don't want to do is, through our own policies, somehow burden these companies that we're working with, and also staff, of taking the time to do all of this, knowing the end result is going to be that we're going to end up with whoever that contractor is through the value added vendor. So I don't know how we go about that. I think that's a further discussion with Doug, Financial Service, our administrator, to make certain that we are utilizing this tool for transparency, but not burdening our staff and our vendors with undue steps. That's my comments.
If I can feed off that, Commissioner Freeling, that's an excellent point, and it's something that if I can make aware to the rest of the commissioners here. We have the capital project for the Juvenile Camera Center upgrade as part of the capital projects for this year. And they have a couple of failed cameras down there in some of their cells that we've been able to accommodate for, but they're to the point the system really needs to be replaced because we can't get replacement parts. Normally, because it's an upgrade in previous years, this would have been something we, would have just went through the normal process. But because I had to go out and get competitive quotes, I had to engage two other resellers, Night Watch and then Telrad, who are also a Vigilon VARs. It added probably an additional 2 to 3 months because I had to bring them in. I had to feed them the same information, bring them up to speed on the project, something that Presidio, being our reseller, was already familiar with. And so we're talking a kind of a critical system down there for the safety, you know, of the juveniles and the staff down there that we're trying to move on, but yet just getting the quote process of that involved a lot of extra time in meeting with these companies, bringing them up to speed on our environment, and telling them exactly what we needed. Again, we're not purchasing in the camera system. We're not purchasing any services. It's strictly hardware. It's strictly software. We're installing the cameras. We're configuring everything, you know, and bringing it up. It's being done in the house. But thank you, Commissioner. That was a very good point.
And what I would like to say, what I thought I would like to, rather than you reinventing the wheel, and this is much like when we do our My Deals, isn't it? In that you're favored, you know, the company, and there should be, you could attach to it saying that this is, what is the word you use? An assigned vendor or a value added seller. You could put that, you know, attach that to it if you wanted to for future, but to automatically go out for as many bids as you can get, knowing that this is the best deal, and the other companies know also. That's what you need to, you know, be able to do. We'll talk about it more, and Administrator Dissett, you'll have some suggestions for us how to handle this. But I don't want you reinventing the wheel every time you need something.
Yeah, so members of the Finance Committee, we started to touch on this last week. I think that IS is a really good example of a department that is dealing with high dollar and very complex projects that over the last year, just the timelines associated with their projects has just exacerbated the difficulty in getting projects delivered and completed. So I think that you know, the waiver program is relatively new, and we're going to need some flexibility to ensure that we are doing our best job to deliver to the public a transparent process that is getting the public the very best deal. Mm-hmm. Now, with that said, we also have an obligation to provide excellent service to the public. And if this waiver process is slowing things down on the IS side, I think that some flexibility does make sense. How to deliver that at this moment, I don't have the exact answer, but I'm keenly familiar with Chris's concerns, and I do think some additional flexibility makes sense.
Want to go to, so do we agree that this should be done, committee? Yes.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Scott, Commissioner Hinkleman?
I'm fine with it.
Thank you. So we waive.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I just want to double check. That's on both of the ones for IS, is that correct?
He didn't talk about what the other one was.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he did. Sorry, Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, so the second one is really, it's the exact same circumstance. We're doing a upgrade to, we have between 15 and 20-year-old switches, network devices, which are in use up on our 3rd and 4th floor in the courthouse. They service the courts. This again was a capital project slated for this year. And right now, Presidio again is our VAR for our Cisco products. They're a MyDeal vendor. We have our support and maintenance contact through them. We went out and got 3 quotes. Again, Presidio was the best price. They were $50,000. CDW was $69,000 for the exact same thing. And the last one we got was from GovConnect, and they were $60,000 and some change.
Yeah,
again, I
10
can
to 20,000 difference.
I can prove the have the quotes if you want to look at them, or we can attach them. But again, we are upgrading existing switches. Presidio has our Cisco support, and they provide maintenance to us. So I mean, this is just something that was scheduled as a capital project for this year to replace these old switches and bring them up to speed. We installed some 10 gig fiber last year, and this will allow us to utilize that capability up on those floors and improve bandwidth. And plus, we're not using 10-year-old code on these switches and bringing it up in line with much of, our network. So.
Okay. Any questions?
Chris, with these switches, will it allow for expansion of our bandwidth, things like that, or?
Yes, we installed 10 gig fiber last year to all the floors, kind of is laying some groundwork for future upgrades. We have some 10 gig switches that are already installed in the county where we've upgraded, and this is kind of a continuation of that. We're trying to spread the cost out, so we're not doing it all at one time. And this year we've targeted the third and fourth floor to bring them up to speed because of their the need with the courts and all that they've been doing with remote hearings, remote proceedings, and all that stuff. Now, that may change going down the road, but the bandwidth need will not. I don't see the virtual stuff going away 100%. So.
Okay. I'm good with this, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioners, do you agree to waive?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Thank you. So, Jake Lideker?
Yes, we have another waiver request. This is a waiver to Crash Data Group from the Sheriff's Office. They're requesting a waiver of $1,250, and Chuck is on the line.
Okay. Good morning, Undersheriff. Where are you?
Good morning. How are you? I'll put everything. So that way, it has to do with our exit reconstruction information for the crash data. So it's a vendor we've used. It's an upgrade to that system. So asking for the waiver for that.
Chuck, how often does this have to be updated? Is that yearly?
I'd have to look at the annual contract. I don't have that one right in front of me. I am familiar with what it was, but I don't have it in front of me. But I think it's an annual license renewal.
Okay, so this is basically a renewal, a license renewal, and or software upgrade, whatever it is, right?
Yes, Jake, if you got it in front of you, I've got the one for emergency management in front of me. I don't have that one, but I think I know it's for the system we use for the crash data.
Yeah, it says it's annual on here.
Yep.
That sounds more like a licensing. We never got any parts before for $1,250. It probably is.
And it is a very useful tool, and we use it often, unfortunately, for different serious crashes that we investigate.
Okay. All right.
I'm good with it, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right, then we agree to waive that. Thank you. Jake?
So one, you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Those are the three.
Yeah, so members of the committee, just this morning, we got one also from the Sheriff's Department. And I know that last week we were pushing waivers right up until just minutes before your meeting. So this is one that if you'd like to consider, we can certainly do that. However, if you want to wait, that's well within your rights. This comes from Chief Deputy Boyce, sorry. And this one is a little bit unique in that he's seeking a single cert approval, and it's for $4,800, and I'll just read through this. At the end of March, we had a local family who lost a loved one due to a drowning in Lake Michigan. The family worked with our Sheriff's Department to provide a donation to the Community Foundation with the stipulation that the funds be utilized by the Berrien County Sheriff's Office to purchase a piece of equipment called the Aqua Eye. The intent of the piece of equipment is to assist with search and rescue for potential drowning victims. So the Aqua Eye is a sonar piece of equipment. It's been used by Barrier Waterman LLC, and it assists law enforcement as they search for individuals in the water. So the complicating factor on this is that we are seeking a waiver, and then secondarily, I'll have to work with Commissioner Curran, Chair of Admin, to get a sign off on the drawdown of the Community Foundation funds.
Okay.
So to the committee, I have essentially two questions. Number one is everyone comfortable with the waiver? Number two is, in the event that we have future Community Foundation donations, does the committee feel that we need to bring these waivers forward, or is the committee comfortable as long as we have donated funds that we trust staff to proceed with the use of the donated funds to acquire the piece of equipment, recognizing that we're not using public funds? So those are the two questions to finance.
So the one question is, do we want it to come to us as a waiver? What do you?
That is question one, and then question two is, for today, are you all comfortable with us proceeding with the purchase of the piece of sonar equipment?
I want to proceed. We have the information. I don't want to hold it up. What do you all thought about that?
One more time, Brian.
I'm sending it to the committee right now.
Madam Chair, I'm fine with proceeding with this. I'm wondering though, to the committee and also to the chair, if this is funds that are donated by an individual or a community foundation for a piece of equipment, then we are not using taxpayer dollars for this. I don't even understand why it would even come before the finance committee.
So it could be argued, since we're essentially acting as a fiduciary, we're accepting these donations. These are not taxpayer dollars. These are donated funds. So I think it is a reasonable argument to skip the waiver process. However, just in the spirit of transparency, there is an in-out transaction where donated funds through the Community Foundation are hitting our finance department. So we're trying to be very respectful of the waiver process that finance has signed off on. But at the same time, we are saying, or I am saying, that on a case-by-case basis, if we have donated funds, I think it makes sense to allow staff the flexibility to use those donated funds and just understand that it's not direct taxpayer dollars.
So then,
And it still goes through the admin committee
Yes.
chairperson to sign the funds to be used. So it is still being seen by the chair of admin.
Absolutely.
so if this pays only for a portion,
Mhm.
and part of it is taxpayer dollars, I'm
Absolutely.
just trying to understand how we draw that line.
So if it's 100% donated funds paying for 100% of the cost of the equipment,
I'm not gonna know that when the requisition comes through.
so then we'll just need to direct staff, if it's 100% paid for by donated funds, then we just take it to admin. If there are any public funds being used as a local match or participating dollars, then we would still bring it to finance for consideration. I know that's a little confusing, but
Excuse me, Commissioner Freeling had asked for it.
Oh, I actually, Madam Chair, I think John had tried to get your attention before myself, so I'll yield to John.
John?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Terry. We've been through this before and have handled it quite the same as Administrator Doucette is speaking. We've also had this happen before where people donate estates to animal control also.
Mhm.
So look to those as an example. Doug, I would, if I were you, Doug, I would look to those for examples to see just exactly how to book it, how to account for it. But we've been through this before. And certainly, you know, if the will of the people that something like this happens, it's great. It's wonderful and an aid. But we have been through this before where we've accounted for these things when they've come in. So if that helps any.
Commissioner Freely.
Madam Chair, I was going to say something similar to what Commissioner Hinkleman had said. I do know that we've had this conversation in the past with regards to donated funds. For me personally, for the sake of transparency, even if it doesn't go through the waiver process to allow the flexibility of staff to be able to do the wishes of those who are donating funds, I would still ask that we somehow get an update and certainly meeting whatever the needs are from a financial perspective for financial services, for the reporting aspect, because I think that this is something that Doug has brought to our attention before of just being mindful of. And for the sake of transparency, that would be my wishes.
Thank you. And what I know on this board and having been on a school board, when you receive a gift, you must accept it. Or if you gave something away, you must acknowledge it. So I would like very much for it to be a motion or an acceptance, for it to be known, you know, for the people to have an acknowledgement that it was done. And many things come from the Berrien Foundation. So I'd like to do it today. And let's, because it came to us as a waiver, let's accept it that way and then decide if that's how we want to continue doing when we do receive gifts. And I agree to accept it.
Madam Chair, as Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
I agree with you too, that we need to accept this and move forward. I'm challenging our administrator and our finance director to explain where in our waiver wording that this is even applicable. Because I'm looking through it and I'm reading it and I don't even see where any of this would be applicable to our standard waiver form. So I'll defer to those two county employees to let us know how to proceed and go forward. But I think we need to go forward right now on this, and I support it 100%. But if there's got to be something else put on the waiver form to handle this, then we need to look at that especially for what Doug said. He needs to have, he needs to know.
So I think that in response to that question, a simple edit to the waiver form is a inclusion of just a box indicating, are we using county funds or county taxpayer funds? And if the answer is yes, then we follow the standard process. If the answer is no, then we need to clarify, similar to what we're doing as it relates to, is this a budgeted expense? What do you think?
I would say it would be, you would want to say donated funds, because county funds do not include federal or state funding. So therefore, taxpayer dollars, and they are subject to certain regulations. So I make that caveat.
So just yesterday, this is a little off topic, but bear with me and I'll get to the point. Yesterday, I went to animal control and met with a local nonprofit. It's a 501c3 that was created to be the Friends of Animal Control. And they're 1 year into their efforts, but in their first year of operation, they have raised $17,000 and change. They plan for 2021 to try and double that number. So I bring that up intentionally, just noting that if it's not the sheriff's department, it could be multiple departments. And we know that with animal control, we do have members of the public that are very concerned about that operation and very much want to help the operation. So this process that we're describing today makes sense. And I think that we can make some revisions to the waiver process to make it easier for the departments to accept donated funds and then to go out and acquire whatever the donators are hoping to assist them with. Okay.
Thank you very much. Are there any other things to do with waivers? I said something about some holsters, did I?
Yeah, that's next on your agenda, actually. And the undersheriff is gonna address that with you guys. We're done, right, Jay?
Are we,
Oh,
we're complete with the waivers?
so as I guess I thought you guys, you said you're okay to move forward with this one, did I?
Yes. Yes, we want to accept it, accept the donation.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda?
That's for the bid 2021-050 discussion with the undersheriff regarding the holsters bid.
Okay. Please, Undersheriff Height.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, good morning again. Last week, you all opened the bid for the holsters. We had 4 bids received. Obviously, your motion was, if we were not recommending to go with a low bid, to come back to you. After reviewing the bids, we did find out, I've submitted to Jake a little bit on the bottom and then also an email. The account regional manager for Safari Land, who's the manufacturer, basically has identified that the low bid was not authorized to bid in our area. They're from Oregon and they have different commitments to regions. And they're basically saying that they would not necessarily fulfill that order and are highly recommending that we do not go with that bid because of issues it's going to cause for them as the manufacturer and them supplying the product to them. So the second lowest bid was Vance Outdoors. It was $790 more than the one from Mallory. Mallory is the one that's from Oregon that the manufacturer saying was not authorized to bid. Vance Outdoors, you may also recognize, is actually who won the competitive bid for the firearms. So from us, there's a value of having the holsters and firearms by the same manufacturer with supply chain issues. If one comes in before the other, it's nice with one vendor, but in this case, it's more because of the fact that the manufacturer is saying the low bid was not authorized. He actually got that from his regional director, and I've got an email from a Darren Fulks explaining that.
Okay.
So the recommendation is to go with Vance Outdoors for the $29,404.75, which was the second lowest bid in the competitive bid process.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners?
Madam Chair, I just have one for Chuck and for the Doug James. Are we going to make a note on our qualified vendor list of this particular vendor does not have authorities to, because they're so far away, so that we don't run into this again, or are we just going to continue?
It's not because they're so far away, and they may not have known either. Chuck, is that possible?
Right, but they're not in our region. So that in those sales, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, Chuck, those sales go to distributors and they have regions. And
yeah, so it is, they're not in our region. So what Safari Land is saying, they're outside their region. They should not have bid. I think they're correcting that with the vendor as well. I know they've been in contact with the vendor. So I guess I would, I agree with what you're saying. I think we'd be mindful of that, in the future, but it's really Safari Land's issue as the manufacturer. And I think they're dealing with it on their end.
Okay, from my perspective, I don't know that I would put them on an excluded parties list, to speak, so to speak. They have the option to bid or not to bid. I understand that it's not in their territory, but we don't necessarily specify that when we put it out on the website for anyone who wants to competitively bid. It's their responsibility to know if they are in our territory or not, or they can sell to us. The mechanism for responding to this would be the completion of the bottom of the bid request form with the reason why you want to go with the second bidder, sign it and date it. And that's what I've asked for the Sheriff's Department to do.
Okay. And do we agree to go with the second lowest bid?
I agree.
I agree. John?
I do as well.
Thank you. Terry, thank you. So we say go ahead and purchase.
Can we have a motion on that, please, for the records? We have that in the minutes.
This is Commissioner Scott. I'll make a motion that we go with the next highest bidder due to the documentation given to us by the undersheriff for the lowest bidder.
Support.
Been moved and properly supported. Any further discussion or questions? Then Stephanie, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Yarborough,
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkleman,
He said yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeland.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passed.
Thank you.
Next item. Thank you, sir.
Okay, the next is Doug, and so you have to tell me the order again. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Okay, the year-end estimate, first of all, that one pager.
The 2020.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, sir.
I'm here to talk to you for just a couple minutes about where we're at with the first quarter of 2021 for the general fund. I have several different documents that were sent to you. The first document has, that's it. The first document is just to give you an idea of where we are ending up for 2020, the way it appears at the present time. This does not exclude GASB 84, which is a whole nother conversation we could have. We're still working our way through that one. When we came to you on December 29th, we said that the net change in fund balance would be basically a small decrease of $44,000. Included in that was a draw from the delinquent tax revolving fund, as well as a year-end appropriation that you folks approved at that point. We did not have to do the draw against the delinquent tax revolving fund of $1.8 million. We did not do an appropriation, end of year appropriation that you folks approved of $1.6 million. You had originally approved $1 million for the health insurance fund, and then another $600 for profit of other funds as they would need to be addressed, so to speak. We did not need to draw those funds. We also received an unexpected award from the for CARES Act. It was the Public Safety, Public Health Reimbursement Program. Originally, they had awarded us, I believe it was somewhere in the area of $391,000. It then came to a redistribution, and I'm looking at the report here that was dated March 23rd, and then it just got finalized this last week that we received another $1.6 million of additional funds. So they basically awarded us $2,082,000. Of that, the general fund, we had to move expenses related to that over to this grant, and that's about $2,155,000. Then the unreimbursed portion nets us down to $1,373,000. So we received a benefit, as it were, to the general fund because of that. Otherwise, the general fund was going to have to bear all the costs related to it.
Okay.
So that gets us down. That gets us down to an estimated ending change in fund balance of $1,136,000 increase, and an estimated year-end fund balance of $26,591,000, or 42.1%, which is above our 20 to 40% level. Okay. Any questions on that?
So in our fund, that's a plus, the 26,591,000.
That's where we are estimated to end the year at this point.
Well,
Additional audit adjustments that can come up.
it's not a done deal. We're 6 months, 5 months into the year.
It's not final till the ink dries on the audit.
Okay.
And the ink's not even been spread around, and we haven't printed the pages yet. So I'm just trying to give you an update of where it looks like we're going to end. Okay?
Any questions about that page? Please continue, Don.
So the next one is
Okay.
the general fund update, right?
Yes, the next one gives you a look at where we are through March of 2021. If, Annette, you want to bring that one up?
Yeah, hang on.
Okay.
There we go. This one. This one?
Yep. That's very small print, but we'll deal with it. At the present time, through the month of March, the net change in fund balance is a decrease in fund balance of $8,994,000. A year ago, we were at $9,339,000. So we are better than we were a year ago by $344,000. If I go up to revenue at the present time through March is I'm going to round here, 3.9 million, which is 6.5% of our budget. For 2020, we would have been at 6.3%. So we are a little bit better. Inside that, you're going to see intergovernmental revenue is up 179,000. About 140,000 of that has to do with the marijuana revenue sharing that we received from the state. And then you're going to see a decrease in other revenue of about $118,000. And a lot of that has to do with indirect cost allocation. Okay, so all told, revenue is up about 92,000 from a year ago. Expenditures are better by 160,000. Wages and benefits are a significant portion of that. And we can go into that a little further if you would like, but I'm just going to touch on that in that way right now. You're going to see that public safety is favorable, 146,000. Of that, wages and benefits are about $94,000. Another 69,000 has to do with kitchen-related supplies. So that's basically what we have there. Moving on down, what this gets you to is, again, revenue under expenditures, or less than expenditures of $7.4 million. And then when you get down to the transfers in and out, gets you to the point of $8,994,000. The estimate that I gave you a while ago for the end of 2021, for the end of 2020, is what we've dropped in here for the 2021 comparative purposes, so you can see how that would roll forward in your fund balance right now. Any questions?
This is good to see.
Okay. We've added another page here in this, an additional report which shows you the full year budget versus the full year amended budget versus where we are on a year-to-date basis. And you can see that by the functional area and the different, I want to use the term cost centers or activities within that. Okay, so you can see their position, which is something we hadn't done before. Then we have the various trend reports for revenue and expenditures. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you folks have related to that, and then we would get to the contingency.
Is that
Okay?
the next thing? Are you done with this one?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay.
I don't know how much time do we have? We're about.
You're good.
We're over?
So
Okay.
I
I just want to make sure that we're
Doug,
dealing with it appropriately. Yes, sir.
Doug, Commissioner Scott, on the last slide showed our expenses in that for buildings. You know the form I'm talking about that was just up there?
Do you need me to go back to it?
Yeah, if you would, please.
Yeah.
Okay. This one? This one?
I'm trying to make sure that I understand which one we're looking at. Okay,
The form.
yes.
Just a real quick question on that. Is the 121,826 listed under other county property? Does that take into account the lease of the public defender's office buildings that we're currently leasing? Or is that not even in here?
I believe that the lease, I'd have to go back and look. I believe the lease of the public defender building is being charged to the public defender special revenue fund.
Okay.
So that would not be a part of this.
I know we had the 100 Church Street building and grounds, but I just didn't know if that other county property for 121,826 was part of that or not, or if it's listed someplace else.
The other county property is basically property that, let's see, it would be the Three Oaks property. It would be if there were any expenses related to the land out on Napier Avenue. It would be related to the old public defender building that's now vacant. I'd have to go back and look to see what other properties are in there. But
Okay.
no, the public defender leased building is not here.
All right, thank you. That was my question. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Hold on.
Okay.
Does this keep going off? Oh, there it is.
I gotta get to the screen, share screen.
Really quickly, I think we're gonna go to contingency so you know where we are presently. Okay. This is kind of a busy report, but in essence, our budget was set for 2021 at $1.3 million. The balance as of yesterday, still available, was $1,169,752. So we've used about $130,000 of contingency. Of that, about $23,000 is related to the purchase of a forklift that we did not have budgeted for. Another $41,955 is for indigent defense parent contract. And then there's juvenile indigent defense in there as well. $13,000 is for Lang investigations for the security here at the administration building. And there's a lot of other smaller items there. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, either now or at a different point, once you've had a chance to look at this a little further. Or I guess answer any questions you may have.
And may I ask you, Administrator Dissett, how are we going to report this at the board meeting? Not this page.
Mamie, can you do that one more time?
Yeah, I wanted, how will we report this at the board meeting? Not just this page, but Doug James's report.
So, committee members, Madam Chair, I think the simplest thing to do is just note that Doug gave an update to the Finance Committee, and that staff will send it out to the full board for their awareness. Yep, which we do.
Thank you. Because I didn't know what to do with all these all these numbers. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Mr. Freeling?
So with all of these reports, I had a few questions. But first with the contingency report, since it's up, Doug, of the items that we currently have on here, how many of them may qualify as reimbursable eligible expenses for response to COVID?
That's a very good question. Possibly what I see here right now may be The Lang investigation, possibly. I don't see anything else here that catches my eye that I would say that would be eligible for reimbursement.
How about the Zoom license?
Yeah. It's a possibility. I don't know. I haven't looked at the wording within the grant, but.
No worries. I just wanted it to be, in the back of our minds as we're looking at this because of the Rescue Plan Act funding that also is coming down the pike. You mentioned a couple of things with regards to the report from the end of 2020, that right now our fund balance would be a little bit over 2% of what our guidelines are. Are we working on a plan of how we're handling that? Do we have something in our policy right now if we get past that 40% fund balance range, what our methods are of corrective methods are for that, or do we just keep on going?
I'm going to jump in there and just say that the advice right now is if you can grow above 40% and just continue to allow your fund balance to grow, right now I think that makes a ton of sense. The Board of Commissioners has been updated multiple times over the last year on the situation in Oakland County that is a claim on the validity of delinquent tax funds. The Raffaelli case is still making its way through the state of Michigan, both on the adjudication side, but then also on the legislative fix side. We don't know what the future is going to look like until that dust settles, and knowing that the delinquent tax fund is still a bit of a question mark, I think it makes sense to grow your fund balance right now, just not knowing if those delinquent tax fund dollars will be as available in the future as they have been in the recent past.
That is an absolute valid explanation. Thank you, Administrator. Madam Chair, I had 3 other items that rose to a question for me to Doug.
Go ahead and ask whatever you'd like.
Thank you. Doug, also in that report, you referenced GASB 84. I know that you said that that's a pretty complicated conversation. I don't really want to dive in too deeply if it really is for another conversation. I just wondered if you could touch on that, on your comments.
Sure. In essence, GASB 84, the essence of it is that what we would traditionally treat as trust and agency fund, which is where we may collect taxes, and then we would distribute the taxes. There's a lot of other uses for it. I'm just using that as one example. Some items that traditionally we have run through the trust and agency fund, we can no longer do because of GASB 84. That is said that trust and agency funds in essence go away, and that they're replaced by custodial funds. The custodial funds are if we are holding the money for a third party. And so anything that we do not impose, I'm trying to think of the right wording here, but we don't impose the fee. So anything like restitution, which is about $700,000 to $1 million a year going in and out, have to go through this fund, through the general fund. That's going to inflate the revenue and the expenditure side. We're going to have to budget for it. There's a lot of other stuff there that I could go get into, but basically we have to change the treatment of the way we handle those funds. And everyone's grappling with this same thing.
It's a fair enough explanation, just at a really high level. I appreciate that, Doug. My other question was with relation to moving into 2021. and revenues and talking about the 140,000 from the distribution for marijuana fees, or however that was structured statutorily. Do we have a system in place of what we're doing with those funds? There's conversation ongoing with staff now.
Yeah, so just in the last week, I went and toured Carol's Hope. It's a nonprofit that ties directly to addiction and recovery. That tour and the request for some financial assistance due to impacts that they're feeling from their donors got me started on the conversation with Doug, with Ben, and then also with the health department. So before we have a direct answer to the folks at Carol's Hope, what I'm doing is pulling together some folks from health, some folks from the courts, and then lastly, our finance team to determine what is the appropriate use of those dollars, what ties directly back to the legislation from the state, and then put together a process for fielding multiple requests from multiple agencies that could potentially qualify for those dollars. So it is a new source of money. It is a source that is likely to grow over the coming years as more of the marijuana facilities go online within the county. So this is a good headache to have. We have cash, we just need to figure out the best way to spend it. So that process has just gotten underway in the last 7 days, and I hope to be back to finance in the coming weeks with some advice on how best to book those expenses.
Perfect. I appreciate that. And I know Carol's Hope is a great organization and seems in the forefront of my mind to be an appropriate conversation to be happening because of the work they do there. Doug, the last question I had for you was with regards to wages and your reference on that with regards to the report for 2021. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that subject beyond, you talked about public safety being a savings, but you had said there was other notes that you had.
I touched on public safety basically because that is an anomaly that sticks out, so to speak, on when I look at the year-over-year comparison. I'm seeing total current expenses decreasing $220,000, of which public safety is $146,000. So that's why I touched on that in that way. If you look at the notes below, I basically laid out for you in a quick summary form that of the amount of $161,000 decrease in total expenditures, of that amount, wages and benefits make up $138,000. And most of that is wage related. I haven't gone inside that to try to take a look at what's driving some of that spending reduction, but it's not unusual for us to underspend. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say underspend budget, but this is on a comparative basis. So I'd have to look at the number of days and the number of payrolls and all that stuff. So I don't have a lot else to say about that right now that I can give any details on. And now I've stumbled around with my words enough.
Madam Chair, those are my questions. And Doug, thank you and your staff for the work that you do. I appreciate the reports.
Other commissioners, Doug?
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
This is a question for Doug and for Brian. How are we going to handle the influx of the almost 30 million that we're going to be getting from Treasury? Is that going to just go into the general fund and then us do general accounting procedures with a spreadsheet showing where that money goes? Or is it going to go into a separate account like a general fund 2 or something, whatever, so that it can be tracked, because it has to be case specific for certain things. I was wondering what.
You want me to? I'll start, and then Doug can handle the specifics, but what I've seen some other communities doing is accepting the funds and then immediately placing them into an interest-bearing account, allowing time then to determine the strategic use of those dollars. As I've noted in the past, this isn't like the CARES Act. We are not in a sprint to spend the dollars. We've got until the end of 2023, so we've got a little bit of time to determine the best use of the dollars, and then to formulate a plan to draw them down. For the immediate future, you receive the dollars, and then my advice is going to be to invest them and enjoy some of the interest coming off of roughly $30 million. Doug, is there anything you want to add?
Treasury has not come out with anything that states specifically a specific fund that we would put these dollars in. I would hope that they will be coming out with something. At the present time, the thought was that we would run it into the same special revenue fund that the CARES Act dollars are going in, so we could keep that separate from an accounting perspective. And that's where my head was.
And folks, I don't want to sound like a wet blanket, but the reality is, until the state of Michigan offers very clear guidelines on the use of the dollars, the cleanest and most responsible thing to do is to receive them and then to let them sit. Dan and I this morning were talking about this and feeling a little bit despondent that if you read the exact language tied to the federal act, I'm concerned about our ability to use these dollars.
Yep.
Now, if the state of Michigan comes out with more clear guidance and we can find multiple examples of creative uses of the dollars, then I suppose I'll feel a little bit more upbeat. But right now, if you read the federal language tied directly to the act, it may be a bit of a challenge to use all of these dollars in that 2023 timeline.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask that question. That's a very good explanation of it.
Yeah. Needless to say, it won't be commingled with anything else.
Madam Chair, just to keep an eye on the clock, it is now 10:05. We do have a couple other items to run through.
Okay. And I thank you so much, Doug. I missed you. I missed this report. And so we'd ask that you all work to schedule it. I don't know how you were doing it before, if it was quarterly or something, just to come to it sooner. And I thank you for all the information. And thank you, Administrator Dissett. Annette, will you tell me what's next on the agenda?
Absolutely. I just need the consensus to move forward the approval of the weekly bills. That's the only resolution that you have that's coming to you this week. That would be resolution F2105031, and I just need consensus, and then I will go to the vote.
I agree. I
agree.
Okay. And then I need an approval motion for the minutes of the May 13th Finance Committee meeting.
May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Freeling. I would make that motion.
May I have a support?
Yes, you make. Commissioner Scott supports that 100%.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly supported. Any corrections or additions? Would you call the roll, please, Stephanie?
Commissioner Yarborough?
Yes.
Commissioner Hinkleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Freeling?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. And I thank you for the things and the information that you send me on both sites. Between the two of them, I get to see it. There is one thing that I want to ask, and I don't know if Doug left or if I'm hoping Administrator you can answer. I saw a resolution and it was so unfamiliar to me, but it was a number 210-5211. And it's a radio purchase by Chickaming Township, and it's going to be financed by Berrien County, and they'll pay so much a month, but for 84 months. And I just don't remember us ever doing anything like that. And it did list some kind of fund that this will come from. Is that something we've done all the time?
To answer your immediate question, the answer is no. Now here's the background on this. Over the last 2 decades, public safety has been moving away from VHF radios to 800 megahertz radios. Sheriff Bailey required all law enforcement to make this move. I think more than a decade ago, all law enforcement within the county made the move from VHF to 800 megahertz. On the fire side, this is something that at the end of 2021, via past board action, Berrien County is transitioning away entirely from VHF to 800 megahertz. Over the past 6 months, through our admin committee, there's been active discussions about ways to help some of the rural townships make the move from VHF to 800 megahertz. We've heard from some of the rural townships that they are struggling both with the technology as well as the financial impacts. Chief Davidson from Chickaming Township has been a leader on this issue. He is the chair of the 911 Advisory Committee. He has been actively working with the county staff as well as with Jim Curran from the admin committee on trying to figure out creative ways to help the townships that have been struggling get over this last step. So we have actively pushed state and federal grants. We have actively pushed local grants to the Community Foundation. And then one of the other items that we've offered up is financing, where we go out and do a purchase installment agreement where the county buys the radio equipment and then the townships pay us back. The agreement is set up to mirror the expected lifespan of the radios so that they're not paying for radios 5 years after those radios have been disposed of. And then the interest rate is just tied to the most recent borrowing we've done. And this is on behalf of the Drain Commissioner's Office. We did general obligation debt at 1.8%. So we just matched the terms. Now, the reality is Chickaming is in a financial position where they probably don't need this help, but what we, between myself and Chief Davidson, agreed that if Chickaming can show that they are using this agreement, it's our hope that some of the other rural townships that truly do have a financial struggle may have a higher degree of confidence and come knocking on the door and saying that they're ready to make the purchase of their 800 megahertz radios. My goal for the board is to have the board approve this resolution, and then if we get through the end of 2021 and we still have some townships that have not made the conversion, you can then point to, we went after grants, we went after local grants, and we even offered to finance your equipment. It's time to make this technology upgrade. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
It does, and it's amazing. When I read it, I thought, I don't remember ever doing this, and it makes sense. So there's no excuse when you can have 84 payments. It's spread over well and very fair. So I'm glad to know, and I'm glad that you saw it. I didn't know who would explain this to us, and so that is fine with me. Then another thing I wanted to ask, there was another I don't know if it's a resolution or what, but it's about that new Buffalo Town Hall. Is that something you're going to talk to us about? Is that on the agenda also?
It's not on today's agenda. It is something that will be coming to finance in the future and then going to the full board in the future. So New Buffalo Township has constructed a public safety building. Berrien County Sheriff's Office has had officers assigned to what was a residential home. The home site is immediately adjacent to the casino.
I think we've seen it.
The home's in failing condition. We hope that the board will consider a lease agreement that allows our deputies to move into the new public safety facility. But again, that's not on today's agenda.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank God. I
Yep.
wanted more time. Those are the things that I wondered about. Okay, what's the agenda now, Annette?
I've already asked for public comment several times. You do not have any today. There were at one point 15 people watching. You have a dozen now.
1.15. What?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How many people were watching?
At one point you had 15.
Oh, I thought you said it was 1.15 people.
Oh. Yep.
At one point, there were 15 people. Commissioner Scott. I'm not calling on you, I'm just bringing your attention. Anything else? Administrator?
Oh, sorry, Brian.
Yeah, the very last item is next week we anticipate a lengthy PHS meeting. Finance should be relatively brief. I was just going to suggest that you all look at a 9:30 start.
If at all?
If at all. So we will keep a close eye on Doug and his team, and if there's a need for a meeting, we would ask that it start at 9:30. If there is no need, we would ask that you all enjoy your spare time.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion right now to state that we do not have a meeting next Thursday. Thank you.
Okay, I support it. I'm not supposed to do that. It's been supported. Yes, I think this was a really good meeting, a lot of good information that we needed. Annette, I thank you. Stephanie, I thank you. I wish I could see you a little better. And Administrator just said, I thank you so much for the things you know and the things that you do. And thank you, committee. And so with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Administrator, did you get my written note of the